I have an excellent connection, it says, but so far no picture. Oh.
I'm not showing any live, so.
No, it says I'm streaming, so I'm not sure why.
There it is.
There I am. I've arrived. All right. Woo! For a minute there, I was worried. I ceased to exist. That would be bad. To suddenly discover you didn't exist. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm here. We're here. Welcome. Ian says we are here. Hello. Yes. Well, we shall get people coming any minute. It takes them a little bit of time. Let's see. All right. A lovely day here. Beth says hello. Hi, Beth. Welcome. This is our birthday week. Daughter had a birthday on the 22nd. Ian has a birthday on the 28th. Son has a birthday on the 29th. And after the show today, we shall be going over to my son's house to celebrate everybody's birthday. Since we're all in the same town now, so that'll be lovely.
Remind me not to kick that thing with my foot.
Oh, that probably hurt.
It had a piece of plastic over it, but it's off and it's got a sharp corner.
Oh, I'm sorry. And it says, blessed be and welcome. Please feel comfortable to participate. Ta-da. You hurt yourself?
Didn't cut it, but it still hurts. I got poked pretty good.
Oh, I'm sorry. Poking a naked toe. Not much fun. So how's everybody doing this week? Those who are showing up. I know we'll have more people show up as time goes on.
We have several people here now.
Yep, we got a few people arrived. Beth says, oh wow, happy birthday all around. Yes, and Teresa says, how are you doing today? Did I remember right? And yesterday was Ian's birthday? You're close. His birthday is on the 28th. My daughter's birthday is on the 22nd. And she is a Leo because she was born a few minutes before it turned into a Virgo that year. Not every year is an August 22nd child a Leo. It varies from year to year. So, yeah. So Dan says, hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. Hi, Dan. And Queerdo says, hello from a hot and humid Minnesota. Been a while since I made it here. Blessed be. Well, welcome back. Always nice to hear from you. Sandcat says, hello, everyone. Hi, Sandcat. Grateful Owl says, happy belated birthday. Well, his birthday's still coming, so you haven't missed it. Teresa says, cool, I'm a Libra at 0 degrees and 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what my daughter is, but she was born like 7 minutes before it turned into a Virgo. So Sandcat says, it's happy Monday here in New Zealand. Well, awesome. It's always interesting. It's morning there too, right? Grateful Alice says, happy future birthday. Yes. Thank you to Ian, for Ian, on his behalf. He has a future birthday.
Yeah.
And weirdly or interestingly enough, my sister is married to someone who was born on the same date as him. I think her husband's only like a year younger than mine, which is just sort of fascinating to me that happened. Like, who knew that August was such a...
What are the chances of your sister marrying somebody with a birthday on the exact same day?
Well, I guess she did it first, so I guess
Well,
it was
out
my
of-
chances. But yeah, it's
Out of,
true.
365 days in the year.
Yep, that's pretty funny. Queerdo says, happy early birthday, Ian. Thank you. Grateful Alice says, synchronicity, kind of. Yeah, kind of interesting. Just like, so I have like the three most important people in my life have a birthday in the same week. So yeah, it's always fun. So what I'm doing this year, since my son has moved here, so we can go to his place, I got a cake and had them divided into three parts. So everyone's name is on the cake. So they each have their own part of the cake. Yes, we had some dogs barking in the neighborhood. SL says, hi, Siofra. Happy belated, Ian. Not belated yet. It's happening next week. Catch up. But hey, birthday wishes are always wonderful. We really like them. Hard to believe you're going to turn 61.
Yes, it is.
Time is a weird thing.
Well, should I just close the windows, do you think?
Well, maybe they'll stop barking. They probably can't hear them as much as we can.
That's true. That's true. Dog barking probably ain't making it through the microphone.
SL says, oh, I saw people posting happy birthday, so I assumed, well, my daughter's birthday happened last week. We took her out to lunch, so that was fun. Teresa says, do you follow annual profections astrology? No, I'm not an astrologer, and I really pay minimal attention to astrology. I've determined that astrology can give me some indications about energy and stuff like that that's out there, but then I'm the person who decides what's going to happen. So yeah, I'm just peripherally aware of astrology from time to time, but it's not my focus. I know a lot of people have it as a focus, but it's not ours. Beth says, I hear them barking. They're doing their job. Yeah, apparently something's going on. I don't think it's the skunk. Usually they don't come out in the daytime. The other night, the skunk came out because I could hear it screaming. Teresa says, for your age of 61, the second house will be a theme that year. I don't think you know what your houses are, though.
No, I don't. I knew one. I learned once, but I don't remember.
We can always look on a program. There's so many ways of figuring that stuff out now. But the main one that I've encountered has been Saturn return. That's been the one that's been most predictable, I guess. Real for me. And not just for me, but for other people. The 29th year after your birth is when your Saturn returns, because that's how long it takes for it to go around the sun. So it's back in the same location as it was when you were born. And most of the time when that happens, there's big changes afoot. And certainly that was true for me. Started at 28 was when I started going through some massive shifts and divorced a husband and moved into the middle of the woods and started channeling and all kinds of fun stuff. SL says, my Saturn return was horrible. Yeah, it's usually not a comfortable time for people, but it can definitely make, you can use it as an opportunity to make significant changes and get rid of things that are holding you back, I think, if you're doing it right, or if it's in the stars or the cards for you. Teresa says second house is the theme of money and resources, even spiritual resources. SL says, I broke both of my ankles. Oh my. Lost my job, got kicked out, but I gained a new career and a better house. See, there you go. Apparently it was time for change. Rafael says, I'd like to do mine. I just need to figure out the time I was born, which means I have to pay for that birth certificate with that information because my mom never remembered. Yeah. Birth certificates have become rather important too, so it's not a bad idea to have one. SL says, so I guess it turned out well. Yes, it did. you got much better stuff out of it. And I'm sorry you broke your ankles, though. That gotta hurt.
Yeah.
Especially both of them. My goodness. Teresa says, my little dog is looking out the window to see where that barking is coming from. Yeah, well, animals, they participate in their own way. It looks like the dogs have finished their job, at least for now. Whatever it was is, nope, never mind.
Shouldn't say things like that.
I shouldn't have said anything. I got them excited again. So what do we want to talk about today? I brought along my polychrome today. I made a video yesterday that'll come out in the next couple of days on the different bodies that we have, the physical, astral, mental, and spirit bodies. And I have discovered that polychrome, it's a type of jasper, is really good at helping me to feel the differences between the densities and separate out those bodies to like experience them individually. So I showed this on the video. So I've been playing with it. I like the feel of it. It's just it's a nice shape too. Sort of a eggish kind of shape. It's nice and smooth, nice and polished. Great Phil Lau says they make it complicated to get done. A guarantor that I have to know for 2 years, like a police officer, for example, which none of them I know. Oh, in order to get your birth certificate?
Yeah.
You're the one that's in New Zealand, right? Am I remembering that? No, that's Sandcat. That's in New Zealand. Yeah. Violet says, hi guys. Hi, Violet. Teresa says, how are you doing with regards to the last video you put out? Oh, I'm always surprised when people find it inspirational, and I had a lot of good comments on it that I answered as well as I could, and I appreciated the energy that people sent me over that, and I'm feeling a lot better. I mean, I had to wait until I was feeling better before I could do the video, so I think it came out of that. SL says, can we talk about astral projection? Can it happen without you noticing? It happens to me a couple of times in my sleep, but I would like to do it consciously. And is it similar to remote viewing? It is similar but different. I mean, it depends. We usually consider anything that we see from a distance astral projection, but in reality, most of what we're doing is mental projection rather than astral projection. Being completely out of your body in the astral is more problematic because of how closely connected it is to the physical body, and so it can have a lot more effect on your physical than mental projection will have. Yeah, and it can happen spontaneously in your sleep, and you can do stuff to try and practice doing it when you're awake. You can try mental travel first so that you get used to the idea of seeing things that aren't near where you are, and it's certainly a lot safer to do it that way. I do mostly mental travel, work in the mental plane because of that. You have a lot more control over your emotions and your feelings in the mental plane than you do in the astral. So you're less likely to get startled and scared, for example, when you see something that's different, that kind of stuff. Great File says, I'm in Alberta. My place of birth is Ontario. Okay. Guido says, if either of you are comfortable sharing, have you ever felt disconnected from your practice spirituality? If so, how did you reconnect with it? I've had phases where I've gone through where I haven't been actively practicing, but I've known that's what I was doing. So I was just in a low tide kind of thing, period. And I would just accept that that's where I was at and I wasn't being active. I would miss being active, certain aspects of it, but I'm always connected to the energy that's around me, the planet, the earth, and so forth, which is a main part of my spirituality. So I don't have that I connected strongly enough with nature that it's always there, even if I'm not consciously aware of it. How about you?
Well, um, for short periods only. With me, it's been mostly getting disgusted and fed up with exercises and practices I've been doing not succeeding, me being too unchangeable to change the way I've been just trying to change myself. But usually those things have been just short term, like a week or so, and then once my mood recovers and things like that. So, not really for me long term, just I have had short terms, like that. And really, all it took for me to recover and get back to it was just resting and stopping the practices long enough. I think really it was more, in my case, a case of probably overdoing the practices and just wearing myself out. So I was entirely exhausted on mental and emotional levels. And
Needed
then
more balance.
I needed to stop and get some rest for a while, and then it reasserted itself normally. Yeah, that's something it's deep in my core at this point because partly because I went through so many traumatic experiences in my life. I know that there's um, it's the only thing that saves me is my spiritual practices, and I really feel like it's that important. It's the only thing that keeps me going. So I don't really disconnect for too long.
Beth says, I had a panic attack the other day. I was instantly transported to my friend's house watching her husband cheat on her, and she was lying, saying he wasn't. I had a meltdown. I'm
I'm
usually
sorry.
neutral, but I'm connected to her, so it hurt me that he was doing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Gaga says, I heard increasing the earth element in the body makes you more productive.
no,
Not necessarily.
I would say almost the opposite. It depends on what you mean by productive. So the earth element has such aspects of affecting your personality, such as persistence, reliability, continuing a practice, continuing in the same direction once you've got it started and not falling off. But also, it can be hindering, it can make you sluggish, it can pull you down. Being grounded is good, but you don't want to be held down by like the weight of a mountain, so it can make it hard to get going and to do things. So, generally, if I were to make a general statement, I would say the air element. Um, I noticed somebody mentioned, SL mentioned the fire element, and that will make you productive, but you have to watch out with the fire element because you can get overproductive, you can get manic, you can get obsessed with things, and that kind of thing. Fire element can go excessive too. Probably if you want to use an element for that, the general one I'd recommend would be air, because if you look at it, the air is less prone to excesses, though you have to have enough earth with that to stay grounded, or you can get lost in just fantasies and things. But generally, it can make you lighter, more active, more able to do things, and generally not prone to such excesses as fire can do. So in general, I would recommend that because also the air element, if you're in harmony with that, it's going to tend to balance the fire and water. The fire being generally active and the water being generally passive, and help to balance those out. It'll also help you if you get. I have a problem of getting dragged down with the earth element myself, but also I don't have enough of it in some ways. So yeah, it's a complicated subject. If I had to just generally recommend one, I would recommend the air
And of course,
for that.
ideally, you want to be balanced in all of them as much as
Yes.
possible. You want to get the most positive aspects of the element and not the negative impact. And the
Yeah,
negative
because
impact tends to be because you have more of it or too much of it, and you're not in balance with the other ones.
yeah,
So, yeah. I mean, Earth is good if you need to be still.
well,
And
that's good for like reliability, and I can't think of the word, but the word is being consistent in what you do. That very
reliability is a good word for
yes.
that.
But unfortunately, it can make you depressed too. It can bring your spirits down and things. And the air does the opposite. It brings your spirits up. So really, in all of them, you need to have a good balance if you want to function well, because each one has excesses and each one has things, if you lack it, that it will cause. And they're not always the same thing. A lack of fire element doesn't necessarily cause the same result as an overbalance of water. So each element needs to be in balance within itself too, and then balanced with each other. You don't want a lack or an excess of any one of them.
So Quirdo says, thank you both for sharing. Sounds like radical acceptance and patience are key to recovering from those low tides. Yeah. And you already mentioned the fire element with SL. Fabiana says, do you have any tips on how to get rid of back pain? Do you think it's connected to stored trauma or negativity? Now, so pain in the body can have a lot of different causes, and not all of it is mentally emotional causes. I think that's been one of the problems in the spiritual community in general, where they try to put everything that's happening in your body as a problem that you're having with your attitude and not working with your energy properly. So you have to remember that whatever it is, although your emotional state and your experiences are definitely a factor, that knowing that may or may not be helpful. I know I store a lot of my trauma in my low back, and I find out about that if I'm getting worked on by a massage therapist who's using too much pressure, and then that activates the trauma, the past trauma, and then I have to take charge of what they're doing and make them stop. But I had this like as a massage therapist, and I had a lot of people coming out of car accidents and things like that coming in. And we had a local chiropractor here who was all about it's all in your mind. If you change your attitude, you will get better. And I was quite annoyed by that approach because he was telling every single patient that. And the ones that I saw, are coming in and they're telling me there's something wrong with me. I'm not having the right attitude. And he says that's why I'm in pain. And I'm like, you got hit by a truck. Okay. So if you have a physical cause for the pain, you need to deal with that too. It's like everything else. You want to go through all the different aspects of it. So you've got finding out like what's causing the back pain on a physical plane. Do you have a herniated disc? Is it a posture issue? You're not using your muscles right? Do you have a muscle weakness? Do you need exercises or to strengthen? Do you need stretches in order to allow things to move better? Do you have some kind of a degenerative disc disease or some other medical condition? So always check with those things first before you look to all the other stuff. And certainly having a more positive attitude, being hopeful, changing how you're doing things and how you're thinking about how you're doing things is not any way a bad idea. It's always an assist to what you're doing.
Yeah, spiritual stuff can come out with a physical pain and stuff like that. But if since you want to get rid of it, you may eventually have to get rid of the spiritual stuff, but you need to deal with the physical first as much as you can and take care of that as much as you can first, and then look to see if there are spiritual issues. I have some problems that I think are spiritually related myself.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it definitely
Yeah.
affects us. I mean, panic attacks and anxiety and stuff like that often has a cause that you may not even remember what it is that got the process started, and then the body just sort of takes over and continues with it. So yeah, it's complicated like everything else. There's no one approach or one answer, so you work with what you've got. And if you're going to do like pain management kind of stuff, you want to make sure you're not going to become addicted to a substance that's going to cause you other problems, or that you're not taking you're taking something that's not actually going to address the issue itself. So the more you know about what's going on and why you have back pain, the better. Then you can make a more sensible choices and decisions. Hopefully have a good team on your side. So Quirdo was thinking about the fire element too. Sandcat says, I'm going back to yoga tonight. I've been dealing with really toxic older parents and I'm not doing so great. I've had to block them on all platforms. I'm going to get protection in place for myself.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. That's frustrating when that happens. I had to kind of unfollow and not quite block yet one of my sisters because the stuff that she puts up on Facebook is, yeah, not good for me to see. I don't need to see that. But that's the thing, is like, if you're going to take care of yourself, sometimes the people that are supposed to be having your back emotionally, your family, are not actually there for you. Because somebody was asking me, I was thinking about this actually this morning. A friend of mine is going through a sort of an emotional crisis at the moment, feeling like she's not worth anything. And the only reason for her to exist is for other people to get mad at her and yell at her. And it made me think about that whole thing. It's like, as long as we are connected to how other people look at us, and that becomes an important factor, the fact that they're projecting on us and they're not working through their stuff, they're not doing the work they're supposed to be to become clear, isn't our fault. It's like, we can only do so much, and working on yourself and protecting yourself is the more important thing. So hopefully people aren't trying to guilt you into having a relationship with toxic people just because you happen to be related by blood. That annoys me. So Teresa says, can you review why a person is supposed to eat more protein when doing magic? Did I get that right? I've been watching too many videos. I think that, well, they say that magic is hungry work because you're using and expending energy. Protein is a fast way to get energy replenished in the physical body. So
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to, though.
Yeah.
A lot of them, and especially in the Hindus, are like vegetarians and things, and they say that's best for magic. So it depends.
Well, there are protein vegetables.
Yeah,
beans, and
there's
things.
yeah. So I'd say, like everything else, it's all individual.
Yeah, and you got to look at your own body and how it works and
Yeah,
what's important to it and what it needs.
I'd watch out about any generalizations like that. You know.
Yeah. So Estel says, "Oh, true. Thank you, Ian." Beth says, "So true, Ian." Some dude says, "Peace, peace." Hi, some dude.
I agree. Peace. That's
Yeah.
the best. Yeah.
Estel says, "Do
that's
you
the
have any
answer.
tips on what to do if you lack a certain element?" I lack fire.
Well, you can learn to just breathe it in. That's the method Barton teaches to start with. You just imagine you're in the universe surrounded by the element, and then you bring it in. If you're bringing in the fire element, you can get to the point where you make your body hotter and hotter by bringing it in. If you're going to practice that, I would recommend not just bringing in a bunch and leaving it in you, because then you're likely to have problems. But to breathe it in and out, or breathe it in like a certain amount of times, like breathe in 10 breaths of it, then breathe it out of you for another 10 breaths to get yourself back by that type of thing. You get accustomed to it, you'll get used to it, and you'll gradually start balancing it. And you can do that with all four elements. That's actually the method Barton uses in his first book. In the third chapter, you start breathing in the elements one at a time to get them all balanced with each other.
So Teresa says, if you draw up the magma when connecting to Earth, then you are bringing in some fire, no?
Yes.
Yeah, well, the planet itself has all of the elements in it.
But yes, that's a good
So
visualization.
the tree meditation exercise, that's one of the things. It's like you're going through all of the elements by going down into the planet, connecting with that core fire of the Earth, and bringing all that energy up into you and so forth. So it's a good way of balancing the elements in your body, because then you're getting a balanced elements to start with doing that exercise. So yeah. Beth says, too much fire puts me in impulse rage and deep heartache. Air helps me flow.
Yeah, and that's all going to be individual. Some people are going to be lacking in fire, so they may have a weak I can't think of the words I'm looking for, but metabolism. If you have a slow metabolism or something like that, then fire generally will help that out. So whether it helps or hinders all depends on your individual balance.
And Beth says, spiritually, back pain can be a lack of support.
Sounds reasonable.
Astra says, hi everyone. Hi Astra. Beth says, exactly, Siofra. I was not moving and a huge semi hit me from behind and knocked me out and it felt like a baseball bat grip my back open. Yeah. I mean, that's a real physical injury. It's like, no matter what you're thinking. So, absolutely. So, Melinda says agreed. And so often the physical and spiritual health issues go hand in hand. They certainly can feed each other for the positive or the negative. Astra says, I need the fire and the earth element because I have a dissociative disorder. That's probably why I have gnome running around my place. Yeah. And being grounded in your life and in the moment is probably a good thing to do for that condition.
Yeah.
Teresa says, love Sandcat. Chief Keef says, family, fractals of our ancestors. We're all dealing with echoes of our ancestors at the end of the day. Izzy says, can you talk about psychic cords? I've heard envy and jealousy can create this type of cord. Well, there's a lot of things that can create psychic cords. And yes, negative feelings are definitely some of the more obvious ones. But there's good cords, like when you get in a relationship with someone and you activate that connection with someone, that's also a cord. But it's so, to be clear, cords aren't always negative. But if there's something negative and you don't want, then it's up to you to disconnect. I think a lot, the sort of Tai Chi as an example of how to interact with things like that. If you think about a fight, a verbal altercation in particular, let's say, somebody throws a emotional verbal barb in your direction or energy in your direction, depending on how you respond to it, depends on what happens next. So if you can see that it has nothing to do with you, it's coming from them, and it doesn't activate your own inner response system or whatever, it doesn't trigger you, then it's like you don't have a hook. It's like they're throwing hooks out to try and get emotional engagement one way or another. And opening up your hand and letting things go, it slides off and then it's not there. Psychically, you can choose not to accept people are jealous of others all the time. You know, there's a lot of different kinds of psychic cords. People get angry at you, send the thought form out. If you accept it, you're connected.
Yeah, generally, I'd add the little thing that a psychic cord generally requires a little more connection than like a straight thought form or something, you know. Yes, those can create them, but generally they come through intense thinking or feeling, or somebody who's like intensely mad at you or something like that, rather than just a little flash. Usually doesn't make a connection long enough to make what you would call a cord or anything. You get a lot of little ones that don't. They maybe do, but don't last for like any amount of time.
Milliseconds.
Yeah, but it's the intense, powerful ones. Those are the ones that you got to watch out for.
So yeah, I mean, clearing yourself and having good boundaries and clearing your own aura is the best way to keep that kind of stuff from being able to take hold. The more you know who you are, what your own thoughts are, and are in charge of your own feelings and your own emotions and so forth, the less likely you are to be vulnerable to accumulating that kind of thing. And people sometimes get the idea that they have to give and give and give and give and give in order to be worthy. And that's like steeped in a lot of different cultures and religions and spiritual practices and so forth. The idea of martyring yourself in order to gain positive points, I guess, for the other side or what have you. And not taking care of yourself is a bad thing. And that can really leave you vulnerable to that kind of stuff, because then people become used to the fact that they can just drain you to get what they want to have done.
And unfortunately, that's a lot of toxic relationships go that way, and the people don't even realize they're being psychic vampires.
Yeah. So Astor says, but after I called the watchtower, I had the energy to clean my house. That's good. So something changed in me. Gaga says, have you heard of the Bohemian Grove? What's your take on their practice? I've never heard of them. Have you?
Oh yes, you have. That's
Oh.
that's the political one where
Oh,
they all
that
go
one.
yeah.
Well, I guess I don't know.
I think it's likely just all bull and symbolic and for show. I don't think there's anything of any value there. At least if there is, it hasn't come out to the public. But I think it's more likely just ritual acts and things, but without any understanding of the deeper meaning. So those probably have no effect. Things like that. That's the politically based one that all the secret
The orders
group,
guys from the different secret
high up
clubs.
political,
Yeah.
really high up political people, presidents and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Beth says, well, I do energy work. I'm starving afterwards, and I tend to want green vegetables in a blender, broccoli, avocados warmed up and served with a piece of fresh French bread. Ooh, nice.
Sounds
like
nice.
That.
Yep.
Sandcat says, thank you, Teresa. And Teresa says, not donuts? Melinda says, that's a good call out, Ian, thinking of Hinduism and the practice of Ekadashi fasting to help improve spiritual connection. Yeah, not just there, but Native Americans do fasting. Lots of different cultures do fasting in order to have a specific purpose for a spiritual journey or something like that. But that doesn't mean it's something you should do all the time.
Well, yeah, and it depends too. I have a problem with anemia because I have a little bit of a bleeding problem, so I have to be careful. I can't really go totally vegetarian, or I'd have to really have some supplements for the iron.
And the iron is binding.
Yeah. So like all things in moderation, and what's suitable for you may not be suitable for others, but yeah, it's good if you can do it.
So SL says, oh, cool, thank you, Ian. I'm going to try it. And Beth says, you can also have cords to your fur babies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you know when something's happening to the people you care about is through that connected cord. That's probably how I saw my grandmother crossing over when she was in the hospital and she passed, and I didn't even know she was in the hospital because my mother and my sister were both there with her in the room. And I'm sure it's my connection with them that allowed me to sense what was happening. Sandcat says crochet is my go-to when I'm stressed or even when I'm not stressed. It's good for the soul, good for me. Yeah. And activities and, creative outlets and things like that are really important to help keeping energy moving, I think. It helps you get a little bit out of yourself, especially if you're feeling like surrounded by negative whatever or overwhelmed by things. Astor says, if you curse or hex someone because they abused you, if you're just angry and didn't put enough energy into it, can you undo it if you actually harmed? I was just finding my teeth and didn't know. I don't do that anymore.
Well, trying is not a bad thing, because if there's some energy left that hasn't got spent to harm the person yet, you can get rid of that and dissipate all of it. So it'd be highly recommended to try and dissipate anything remaining. And then, if you the only thing you could try to do to make up for it would be to try to do the opposite in some way, in some good fashion. Do some positive thing.
Not necessarily to the person themselves, if they're a toxic individual, and that's the reason why you're mad. We're not saying that you should go get a relationship with them to make up for it, but you can, the energy, the universe isn't going to do a tit for tat, like you did something negative to this person, therefore you have to do something positive for that person in order to make up for it. It's just a matter of the total energy output. So if you're being more positive and helping people that you can feel comfortable and good about helping, that helps to balance that. And also trying not to be attached to whatever it is that's going on with the people that triggered you.
Yeah.
Chief Keefe says Bohemian Grove seems like just a bunch of rich philanthropist Disney adults.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling about it. from what I know of it, which isn't much.
Beth says Bohemian Grove has a lot of stuff on YouTube about it, but when I sat still, I just felt it's just playtime. Yeah, they just like the posture. Asher says, but I feel very guilted and worried about it actually harming the person, and I feel worried. I was just sick of being abused by people. But the level of anger I had scared me. That's not the kind of person I want to be. Ever since
Yeah.
my spiritual awakening and realizing this stuff is real, I felt horrified that I would even do that. But I don't want to be a doormat. Now I just send negative energy back, no cursing allowed.
Yeah, well, I think everybody, when they get started, does some silly things. I myself did, which I'm not going to mention in particular. But yeah, I had a lot of stuff before I knew magic even existed. I was unable to even read about it. I had a real problem with my mother from childhood, and so yeah, I couldn't even bring home a book on magic or anything. So you know, crap happens, and then afterwards I realized and had went through some of the same stuff. If as much of the energy is grounded out and happens, you can't really do anything about, but you can minimize the negative karma on yourself or things like that, by stopping the practice and such. Think about the fact that most people out there don't even know that magic exists, and they're still doing this similar type of harmful things to people. So it's kind of a normal state of the world until you learn, and that's when you can really learn to stop accidentally harming people with your thoughts and feelings and things. So um, don't beat yourself up about it. Just choose not to make the same mistake again.
My philosophy is if
Yeah.
you can learn something from it, then it hasn't been a complete waste of time. If you don't grow and learn anything from it, there really wasn't a point, right? So, moving forward, you're in charge of what happens, what you do, more
Yeah.
aware now than you were
And,
before.
and also remember too, I have a real problem of judging myself as I go forward into the future, because I work hard on changing myself for the better. And if I change for the better, then that makes me judge my past self that much more harshly. So you have to be careful of doing that. And sometimes it helps to remember that you just weren't where you are now. You just weren't there yet in the past, and forgive yourself for that.
Yeah, you can only be as productive and good as you're able to be and what you know at the time. People who survive child abuse often do that and judge their younger self for being weak or vulnerable or whatever, instead of acknowledging the fact that they were just a child. And that's similar kind of thing. If that image helps you to get it, even though you were an adult when it happened. But
Yeah,
it's
well, I
like you
have
can only
stuff,
do what you know
I have
when you
stuff
know it.
that was only 3 or 4 years ago that I still feel bad about. It's because I'm continually making progress and improving my moral standpoint. But you have to be careful not to judge your past actions by that. Let them stand as what they were and drop them, let go of them, and let yourself change for the better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Beth says, I like to walk at night. It's safe and enchanting here. Good. I'm so happy. I don't think I could do that here. Crow says, working on creating a shield for energy vampires. Any ideas? Sometimes we have to be around those types for a bit in a group family setting. Well, I mean, being aware of your boundaries, your energetic boundaries, is very useful. It starts with that. But you can use different visualization techniques depending upon the seriousness of the intrusion. In an emergency, you can kind of build like a steel ball around yourself to block out everything. But that's what it does. It blocks out everything, both good and bad. The more you practice, the more you can sort of tune in your shield to block out the negative stuff and allow the positive stuff to come in, which is what I do. Um, yeah, so I mean, I visualize like around my energy field shield is like sort of like oil moving on water, so it stays on the surface and it's all around and changes colors and is just sort of there. And so if something negative comes at me, that part of my energy shield will turn into a mirror and send the energy directly back to the person. So I just reject it immediately. And then something positive comes, I allow it in. And so, you got to practice building your shield. And yes, if you have to be around toxic individuals, that's certainly something to do. You can also have working protections, like I have bracelets and things. You can wear stones to carry them with you, be there
Right.
with them, um, and and have already put the energy into protection, and then just putting it on helps to maintain that protection for yourself. And I do that when I go, if I'm feeling vulnerable in particular. I have bracelets I put on when I'm going grocery shopping. I'm going to be encountering a lot of strange energy, just trying to maintain myself. So Gaga says, how do you know you're speaking to a spirit he was trying to contact and not just some random one misleading you like a thought form or some other spirit? Practice and experience. It's the only thing that works. Otherwise, you don't know. But if you have authority and you ask them their name, they have to tell you.
Well, if you practice enough and learn the clairvoyance right, you realize all of a sudden, it no longer sounds like a voice speaking within you. Eventually, it'll start sounding like you're hearing them externally, and then you won't have a problem telling the difference.
Asher says the vitriol that person had was so disturbing and cruel, but I didn't like that I reacted to that level. But I think actually getting angry is a positive thing. I just now realized I need to be smart. Yeah. And anger can be a useful emotion. You can use it to address an issue that needs to be addressed. Sandcat says, Crow, LK, this is something I'm interested in too, working on the shields. Chief Keefe says, accidental hexes can happen, although I do feel like nature doesn't grant them if there isn't any underlying justice to be served. That is definitely an important point. I had someone try to bind me magically, and I was immediately aware of it and broke it. But I'm like, the universe is not going to allow that to be sustained. I haven't done anything worthy of that. And so it was pretty easy to break. Sandcat says, how do I highlight the name of the person I'm replying to? I have no idea.
Yep. Hey, Sandcat, by the way, it worked. You just can't see it, but it worked for me. It's very highlighted on mine in a nice orange color.
Okay.
So you can continue on. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no problem. Teresa says, after the universe forgives you, don't worry, but do find a trusted person to talk to about your feelings. And Chief Keef says, by adding an at with their name attached.
Yep.
Beth says, I'm with you, Ian. My trauma was from my mother. I've accepted it. Something I have to work on daily. Astra says, yeah, I think it probably didn't have a serious effect on the person, but I'm just very sensitive, so it doesn't take much to make me feel guilty. I started crying just thinking about it. Thanks, guys. I'm sorry. Beth says, Ian gave a great example a couple of weeks ago on shielding. And he put in that Sandcat, do you mean like this, and use the at sign.
Yeah, and then when he replied back, you can see how it highlights it there.
Yep. Doesn't highlight it on mine, but highlights it on yours.
Just highlights it to the person you aimed it at. Yeah.
Ah, I see.
That's the only person who sees it is the person you aimed it at.
Duh, I can't do it.
But you did. It worked.
But you
fine.
did. You
yes.
did it. You just can't see it. He saw it. So apparently it's an individual thing. It's like,
so,
I can see it,
yes.
yeah. Nice orange color. Master says, thanks, Teresa. Melinda says, trust your gut. That goes a long way in knowing which spirits you can trust. And if you have pets around, they can be a major help too. Pay attention to how they behave when you're interacting with spirits. Yeah, definitely. Sandcat says, oh, yay, thank you. It says, being born this way, you see energy vampires coming. So gravitate towards us. Yeah. Well, it's a funny thing about when I found the vampire rule book, bylaws or whatever. It's like how to interact with witches. And they warn each other to stay away from witches and healers especially, because the first thing we're going to want to do is fix them. And they're determined to feel like they're not broken. There's nothing wrong with them. This is just how they were made, and it's okay. really can't do much with someone who thinks that way, and they are correct. My first instinct is to try and ground them and make them stop taking energy from places that they don't need to take energy from, because there's all this energy here. Who needs to be a vampire? It's just everywhere, free for the taking. Crow says, I wonder if I can practice shielding, then having a friend practice saying vampire-like things, imagining some sort of Star Wars laser battle. It's just hard to feel how strong the shield is. Yeah, that's a good point. You could maybe do practicing, or yeah. But you'll get better. I mean, the more energy you put into it, the more attention you put into it, the more automatic it becomes. Teresa says, once when I was sitting around the campfire with family, the smoke was going to my father, but not to anyone else. He kept moving locations. The smoke followed him, but bothered no one else. What the heck? Yeah, but then some people have that, and it's not like they're being nefarious, awful people. So I don't know. May have been true for you, but maybe not. Beth says, honestly, being born this way, amazing times. It sucks. Yes. And lots of hearts for Sandcat. Geiga says, do animals reincarnate like humans? If they do, what's their purpose of it? Okay, my experience with animals on the other side is like a pool of energy from which the animal spirits come from. They have individual life experiences, and when they pass, they share what happened to them, how they died, what their lives were like with this larger reservoir of energy. Like I found that out when I was connected to the cow when the cow was shot, and I was pulled out to the other side with the cow, and that's what I saw was this sort of energetic pool of stuff that was cows. It was like the great cowness is what I called it. And the cow was going through remembering its death as it was passing over. So I don't think in general it's the same way. I have heard here and there that sometimes a connection with a human will be so strong that an animal will reincarnate to be with that person again. But in general, I think that's not likely. It's interesting though, and
Yeah,
different.
yeah, I don't really have an idea on the subject myself.
Yeah.
I just stay open-minded.
Well, right. I mean, that experience with the cowness was so visceral and unexpected when it happened. Also helped me understand why cultures did animal sacrifice, because that's sort of like a fast and dirty way to open up a portal to the other side is by the death of something. And it doesn't matter what the something is as much. But the bigger the thing, the stronger the portal that the medicine person can then use to cross over to the other side. I've just made a commitment not to do that in this life. I don't have a problem with people who do if they're doing it, you know, uh, appropriately. Because certainly animal sacrifice has been something that's been around for many thousands of years. And then they eat the animal, and I eat animal, so I have nowhere to talk when it comes to that. Chief Keef says energy vampires remind me of the Black Lodge from Twin Peaks. Linda says my dog was relaxing at my feet and sat straight up to listen as you were describing your interaction with the cow. Ah! Well, that's interesting. Should we read something into that? Sandcat says that Beth, I'm getting the hang of this. All right. Yeah, it was certainly a shocking encounter with the other side. And what was more interesting was when they asked me to do a healing on the cow, and so I met the cow. I mean, I was intimately connected with the cow's energy, um, and I saw Hathor immediately. The cow goddess from Egypt. She was there. As soon as I saw her, I knew that the cow was going to die, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. But I made the cow more comfortable, at least for a while. And it was a family cow, and they're very attached to their people, and they will often linger longer than they would if they were just in the wild, because they're trying to stay for their people. So animals have emotions. That's all there is to it.
Yep.
So Crow says, do you have any experience with people have rebirth back into their family line so ancestors can possibly become a future descendant, assuming human linear time? Yeah. I know that that's a definite possibility. And I've met some families where that seems to have happened and heard stories about it. I don't think I have any in my family at the moment, although I fantasize about the idea of reincarnating in my family line so I could get all my magic stuff back. But I don't know. So far, there aren't any, like, potential ancestors right now. So we'll see. And Haley says, I just wanted to express how thankful I am for your work. The way you teach and share through your experiences really helped me be more aware, inviting healthier energy into my life in the past months. Good, because that's important. The things that we invite are definitely important to be good things. Belinda says, I haven't experienced pet reincarnation per se, but I feel like I've had connections with pets that were strong enough that it seemed like they chose which pets came into my life after they were gone. Yeah. And I mean, people often just get adopted by an animal. I was reading a story just the other day. This guy happened to be in a parking lot and there was a cat sitting in the parking lot. The cat just went, my human has arrived. And just went into his van and went home, and he travels with him all over the place. A part of his YouTube channel. It's really awesome.
Well, that's what happened to my friend Fox back when I lived in the Medford area. Their cat, Bunny, they called it, just moved in. It came in their door one day and it just took over their house and started living there. So they were happy and took care of the cat. And,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can happen. Izzy says, do you have any experience with water spirits? I was thinking of using river water for scrying. Yeah. We have some local undines here at a lake that I've met and encountered personally. When I was making my water wand, they wanted to see it, and we had this this whole conversation. River dragons are interesting, and I have a past life memory of scrying using a pool of still water with moonlight shining in it. So,
Water is definitely one of the best ways to improve your skill at scrying.
and you can do it like in a bowl. You can like line a bowl with black felt to make it dark enough and put water in it, and then do scrying in the water that way too, which is sort of a fun experiment. Astor says, will I get to see my cat again? I wanted to tell him I'm sorry about how he died and wish I would have appreciated him more. I was just disassociated and not present. Well, I think you can just say that, feel that, and the cat will know. Every cat I've had that has died unexpectedly has come in my dreams or in a clairvoyant incident or whatever to tell me that they had passed and what had happened to them. So it is certainly the energy between a person and their pet is very strong. Beth says, I've practiced decades for when I cross. I'm going straight to daddy and push other family members away with love, but we're going to finish this dance. That's exactly how Taco came to me. He jumped in my arms and it was love at first sight for both of us.
Yeah, you missed a brief one from Astor that said, I have a new cat.
And tell him I love him every day, and he just purrs and smacks me because he's a cat.
Yep. Cats are cats. That's all there is to that.
Learning their language, and they have good boundaries. That's one of the things that's nice about a cat. They will teach you about boundaries and what a healthy boundary is. If they're into it, they're into it. If they're not into it, no. Watch out. If you're not paying attention, it's smack. So, in case you didn't get the message, right? So Beth is sending Astra some hugs. Grateful Owl says, I remember an older lady had a long-eared owl visiting her almost every day. It would hoot at her when she came outside. Her husband had passed before this, so might be related.
Cool.
I think different families have different traditions about what animals or things that they see after a loved one has passed that represents them. And some people, for some families, it's butterflies. For some families, it's cardinals. So for her, it might have been the owl. It depends on the person and the traditions in their family line, I think. and their awareness of that kind of stuff. And it helps the person who's left behind feel at least seen and remembered and connected on some level. Beth says, Astra, new kitty. I love that for you. Crow says, how do you use your Akashic wand? Do you ever use it to incorporate looking in past life or past life? How do you prepare yourself for past life journeys? Well, I spontaneously have remembered most of my past lives, and some of them I've done because I needed to find out what was going on in a relationship I was currently having, like with my son, and did like a past life journey regression kind of thing. It's not something you just should delve into unless there's a purpose for it, because the stuff that you see about yourself in general is not all that nice. Because if you think about if we're thinking in a linear sense, and if past lives are truly in the past, which is a different question altogether, but as far as your own spiritual journey, if they're in the past, like we were just talking about recently, like, you only know what you know at the time. And so if you're born not knowing anything at all, and you're born into a violent environment, and you become a violent person, that can be a past life that you've had, but you don't necessarily need to remember that because you've moved through it. And you have to end up processing unresolved issues when you remember past lives sometimes. So, and some people can go kind of psychotic. There have been a few instances of people getting stuck in a past personality.
I've got to go get some headache medication.
Okay. One of my more interesting things that I experienced was a past life coming forward in time and taking over this life and doing something and doing a job that needed to be done for a past person that was in my current life. So there was like a direct energetic link between the two lifetimes. And so that was kind of interesting. And I just roll with it when stuff like that happens. I just am very accepting of whatever the reality happens to be, and try not to question it while it's going on, because otherwise you just sort of go nuts. And my Akashic wand I'm using mostly for the Amethyst Crystal Web project. That's partly why I'm using that, to sort of connect into the Akasha so that energy leaks down through the different planes. But I'm not trying to check out my past lives in particular at this point. I've got enough of them to deal with. Asher says, my new cat, upon entering my home, ran straight towards where my previous cat had died, laid down, and started purring. It was like he was acknowledging the other cat. Grateful Al says, they believe it was him. Oh, yeah, they believed it was him. Sandcat says, cats are so cool. If people behaved like cats, we would all know where we stand. Yeah, that's a fact. And Beth says, all the clairs have been extremely heightened the last few days, and I have 2 cats not feeling great hope. This intense energy isn't affecting them. Gaga says, I heard about some killers claiming to be haunted by their victims. What's your take on that? I would love that. It seems like it should be true. It could be true. I mean, if you're unresolved and a ghost, and I've heard stories that there's been a few serial killers throughout time that have turned themselves in because they couldn't take it. But I don't know. I haven't seen it myself, and hopefully never will, because I don't want to have that happen to me. Don't want to kill anybody. Neutralicious says, I did a past life regression. It was intense, also explained so much. It was very therapeutic. Yeah, if there's a reason for it, it can be therapeutic. It can help if you have phobias and certain anxieties that don't seem to be related to this. I did an emergency past life regression on a young man here a number of years ago, because he started having flashbacks, intense flashbacks to the Civil War. There was a series of realistic programs that was coming out. They had these ads on, and the ad just immediately triggered him, and he felt like he died in this battle and could feel the wound in his shoulder and so forth. So I felt it was necessary for him to get an overview, because sometimes remembering what actually happened and the circumstances around it can help give you an overview of the situation to help you put it to rest and put it into its rightful place. And one of his best friends in this life was in that life with him, and he recognized people from his current life back there, and discovered he didn't die in the battle. He got wounded, but he didn't die, and then he had more life afterwards that he remembered. So yeah, it's if you're going to do that as a guided thing, it's important to do it with someone who actually knows what they're doing and can be a safety net for you to make sure you don't get stuck, I think. And so, I volunteered to do that because it was like, okay, we don't need him to like shatter because he's about to. So, and it worked. Sandcat says at Gaga, as sad as that is for the victim to be haunting their killer, I think they would deserve to be haunted. I have heard of this happening. Gaga says, you think I'll have any luck asking a spirit about immortality? Would they have any knowledge about it? Well, some of them might. But immortality, what does that mean? You're talking about physical immortality, which is not probable. If you're talking about spiritual immortality, it's pretty much a guarantee unless you do something really bad and, mess up and go somewhere and can't get back. Beth says, I would die for my cats. I have 4. And Neutralicious, that is a wonderful, most excellent. Melinda says at Gaga, this makes me think of Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. Krumek says, hi, I'm Nana from Iceland. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Sandcat says, Beth, I hope you never have to do that. For cats is so cool. Do they all try to get on your lap at once? Krumek says, thank you for sharing your gifts. You're welcome. And I'm glad that some of the things that have happened to me can help others. Haley says, definitely agree. I found past life regression was not for me. It was distressing for my present self. I stopped quickly and worked through it via astral projection, and it helped me balance. Krumek says, I opened up once clairaudient and then it stopped like I was alone again. Why is that? I don't know. It could be that you're balancing yourself in other ways. And so when you start to actually become more balanced in your gifts, sometimes they all sort of go down and it seems as if they're gone for a period of time because you're working on other things energetically and balancing out your body.
Well,
but then when they come back under more control.
Yeah, and stronger. Sometimes you can actually get something like clairvoyance as a result of an imbalance, if you're imbalanced enough. And then as you get more in balance, yeah, that's when it can kind of go away. But generally, things overall will be improving in all kinds of other areas also. You'll vastly make up for, if it's something like that, you'll vastly make up for the improvements that are caused by getting more balanced.
Yeah. Beth says, I guide people as well, Siofra, but I'm starting to change. My friends now, I'm a wedge and energy worker and a massage therapist and Reiki master. They weren't free. Well, yeah, and they don't have to be. This was an emergency thing. Astra says, if I harmed anyone in a previous life, can I ask people to forgive me? I don't remember doing anything, but I worry about possibly being a jerk. I do a forgiveness prayer just in case. We were all jerks at some point in a past life, so.
That's part of a large part of the past life is I think most of the stuff that would be karma ends with your past life. I mean, there can be things that can carry over, but they're generally more like tendencies in your own behavior and that kind of things rather than, I would say you probably don't need to worry about it at all. I wouldn't be concerned with past life stuff like that. If there is something that comes through as karma, it'll just be a behavior or tendency that you need to change yourself. And I think that's, once you're into a new life, I think that's pretty much all you owe the past life is to change yourself appropriately. I think most of those connections die with your physical body. A lot of that stuff.
Yeah. Beth says, Asher, they all have their own personalities. The male stays with me constantly, but I love it. Nutritionalist says, my regression was with a person who specializes in it. I agree. I actually saw myself die, but she had prepared me that I might. Yeah. And it is interesting. I actually went through one where I remembered my death and then my afterlife. and that was very interesting. It was quite a surprise. Like, okay. Krumek says, I wonder, okay, I hope it will open up again. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. And that's the thing, is like the reason for getting into this in the first place is not to necessarily develop psychic power, but it's a side effect of becoming a balanced being. And then those things open up. Like my ability to see my aura has increased dramatically in the last few years. So it's just this,
Yeah, a lot of those things, if you're really doing the practices right, a lot of those things will open up without you having to specifically work on them. Thank you, Grateful Owl. That's very nice.
Oh,
Thank you so
wow.
much.
I just saw that. Thank you very much. Happy birthday. We can take it as that, right?
Awesome.
Yeah. So Beth says, she, for the crystal you recently got, and you asked the crystal if you were going to use it for your third eye or your crown chakra, I had to chuckle. That actually was not me, that was Teresa. Violet says, did you see Discovery of Witches? Yes, we loved that show. I thought that was great. It is interesting to me that it is in the bloodline to be born a witch, and I never thought of it that way until watching it. You said you knew you were a witch at 4. Yep. But I mean, there's the hereditary witch idea, which is what that is based on. But I've got all the past lives that had nothing to do with my family line. So,
Well, yeah, and you don't have to be a hereditary, but there is some valid aspects to the thing of passing along an initiation through a lineage, and that, like if you get initiated by a certain person, you get a certain amount of their energy, and then you can pass that along. Um, so there is some validity to that, but you can
well, there does
certainly,
seem to think, some families seem to have like the gift
yeah,
running
it,
through
it,
them.
it can be a helpful thing, but it certainly is not at all necessary. You can start at any time.
Yeah. Beth says, if your third eye opens snap anymore, you're going to go bananas, girl. This is true. Chris says, I had one, and I was working with one of my shaman's teachers, and she held space for me. And it was a portion of a life that was supposed to help me understand a component of what's going on now. And Grateful Owl sent us $20 and says, I know it's not a whole lot, but I wanted to thank you, Siofra and Ian, for sharing your knowledge with us all. And we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, we do.
It says, let's celebrate the third super on a live stream. Okay. Yay, we're celebrating. Asher says, okay, that makes sense. So if I did harm anyone, they're probably okay by now.
Yeah.
And I love that show too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chief Keef says, I seem to have been initiated by actual spirits up until now, often on the trickster spectrum. I went through a whole bunch of astral initiations for years. And they were weird because I would know I would be going through one and I'd be very present in it. And then at the end of it, they would make me forget what happened. It was very annoying. I would just know it had happened and something had been changed. Beth says, I saw my tiny paternal 90-year-old grandmother hold her hand out and throw them in 10 feet across the room and hit the wall. Wow. Violet says, I unfortunately lost my cool at 7:30 a.m. with the noise of my neighbor. She yells with her door open and it affects me to the point of exploding, unfortunately. I was quiet for 3 long years and lost it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Things can happen though.
Yes.
I've been known to get annoyed with noises while I'm trying to meditate, but thankfully my sound canceling headphones now help so much with that. They're comfortable enough I can wear them while meditating. So
Sounds like she was like a Tai Chi master, your grandmother. Love it. Beth says she was the most powerful witch ever experienced in my entire life. Teresa says, I think a lot of the younger people who are taking an interest in spirituality are really in touch and bringing in a better future, help us all evolve. What do you think? Well, I certainly hope so. Some of them are, and some of them aren't, like everything else.
Yeah, I think in general, overall, things are generally heading a better direction. I just wish it wasn't so slow, but yeah, I think it is.
Nutritious says, "Can you explain Akashic records and how do I get mine?" Well, you don't necessarily want yours because they're very raw and unfiltered.
I once had an ad for a psychic record player, though, that you could buy from a group called The Temple of Sonic Youth. Well, they had these records, recordings of Crowley, I think it was, on
I see.
whatever. And you could buy the Akashic record player to play them.
I see. You can get your own Akashic
It was
record.
actually just a little portable record player, you know.
Well, I figured as
but
well.
I thought it was cute. Yeah.
Yeah, entertaining. The Akashic records, basically, the entire universe is aware and alive of everything that's going on in it. And it remembers everything that has happened and will happen. And is, it's like it sort of imprints it. That's what the Akashic records are, is an imprint of your energy through different lifetimes and so forth. And I was there once consciously because someone asked me for help. And I was standing, that's how I visualized it. The record keeper was standing behind me, and I was looking at an open book, and the open book was the person who had asked for help. And I would look at the book, and pictures and images and feelings would come off the page. It's not like they're words, they're there. And he kept telling me to read it and remember, read and remember, read and remember, or watch and remember, or something like that. And I don't know how long I'd been standing there until I started to become conscious of what was happening, and I was remembering it. And then I woke up. And in that instance, it was because I was doing it for someone else. There's a lot of literature that says it's a bad idea to do it for yourself. I don't know if that's true or not. Like past life regressions is one way of trying to access the Akashic records of your own spirit. So you don't have to go to the Akasha to do it.
Yeah, I will say that if you want to work with the Akasha, for instance, viewing the Akashic records and stuff, be most helpful to balance your elements because the Akasha has an aspect of balance. And if you can reach the Akasha, it will help balance your elements. But vice versa, balancing your elements makes it easier and easier to work with and reach the Akasha.
Raphael says, "Don't spend it all on a fancy headset." Just kidding. We already got the headset, so he doesn't need to spend it. Kumik says, "Are you in Canada?" No, we are in Oregon. Grateful Owl says, "Good video, by the way." Oh, that is the person who saw it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And Beth says, "Yay, the headphones." Grateful Owl says, "For your headphone review."
Thank you.
Yeah, we thought it might have been you. We weren't sure.
Yeah.
Kaga says, "I heard spirits can curse land to the point where you can't take anything from it, like rocks." Well, yes.
I have heard of those kind of curses.
Well, Hawaii, taking lava rocks from the island is considered bad luck, and you're not supposed to do it. And people do it, and then they mail them back. And the Hawaiians are tired of it because then they have to go out and try and figure out where to return the rock. This is not very cost effective for them. So they're like, "Please stop taking rocks." And there are just some things that are better left untouched. I mean, there's some sacred sites that it's a bad idea. There's a power spot in southern Saskatchewan where people have started removing the stones from the medicine wheel. That's there. And I've been to that spot. And traditionally, before you go up to the medicine wheel, you're supposed to pick a stone from below and then you add it to the center of the cairn. And that's one of the ways everyone who's ever been there sort of becomes a part of the medicine wheel. And some morons think this is a great idea to take them away and take them home with them. And I imagine they don't have much fun after they take them home because that's not what you're supposed to do. And the government, of course, is concerned for the vandalism of the sacred site. So they may have actually made it so people can't get there anymore. I don't know. But yep, people are stupid. Chief Keith says, Akashic Records, huh? Gotta eat the bitter cookies too. Yep. Whoops, don't do that. Astra says, is that true? If you ask a spirit to do something, then you owe them. I asked the sparkling beings of Orphe in my place to protect my place. Then I asked the weather spirits to make it rain.
Usually not something that simple. Usually, if it's going to be something like that, the being will make you aware that you are making a pact, depending. Um, Generally, my recommendation is to give them an offering first to pay an energetic debt. Give them an offering of some sort. They can use that energy to make what you ask for happen and pay them up front, type of thing. But yeah,
Yeah, the other thing is that depending on how you ask, if you're asking for a favor, and when I do that, I'm like, hey guys, I could use some help. If this is within your purview and it's okay for me and it's not going to harm my progress or whatever, can you do me a solid and do this thing?
Yeah, they can just decide to help. It's generally the things where if they were to put out a whole lot, they would have to put out a whole lot of their own energy to do what you ask them. That's when generally you need to be able to supply that energy. So unless you're asking them to do something really, maybe grossly material or something, I don't know.
Yeah,
But
and a
yeah.
lot of times, if they like you, they have no problem trying to protect you because that's sort of one of the things that they would naturally do. And if you're attracting a lot of positive spirits, then negative spirits don't want to hang around anyway. So it's sort of a natural.
Yeah, I think most of it, I mean, I understand that pacts can happen accidentally from what I've read, but I think most of them that happen, the person is in full knowledge that it's happening at the time and they make that choice, I think, in a lot of cases. I don't think the cases are that common either.
Yeah.
I mean, generally it happens because the person has some abilities, from my understanding, that the spirits might want to use after their death, like they're a practiced magician or something and have some magical abilities, and then they can serve the spirit well after their death. So then they make willing pacts and things, but those are very rare, I think, really. And while you should always keep in mind that potential and that energy exchange idea, I don't think you need to worry about it overly either, especially if you're just asking a little help with something or communicating with the spirits. And like I say, they can just choose to help you if they want. I have had nature spirits do that for me before when I just went into nature and I was feeling depressed and down, and you know, Mother Nature reminded me of things like once, like I'm very powerful. I can be a very powerful ally, and there was no sense of pact or anything in that.
And Beth says, what is happening this week to bring up so much anxiety? Something is off. I can feel it. Nothing more than usual at my end. It's like I think that it's an individual kind of thing. Who knows? There's always so much going on. You just be extra sensitive to it this week. Or it's something personal. I was having some dreams about difficulties ahead and having to pull myself up kind of by willpower alone in order to get out of where I was or to get to where I was trying to go. So I suppose I have been picking up a little bit of something like that. Usually I get those warnings and I know it's coming, so I try to prepare as best I can. Astor says, I wasn't trying to enter into a pact, Lord. I hope they didn't take it like that. I was just asking, not even sure if they did anything. Yeah, I think you're fine.
Yeah, from
I don't know
my
any pacts.
understanding,
No,
most
no.
spirits won't take advantage of a situation like that, and largely they're not like angry and wanting to harm you and stuff by nature. So yeah, I don't think you need to worry about it too much unless you're actually trying to make a pact. Yeah.
Astor says, I watched your video on spirit pacts and getting stuck in a realm and forgetting who you are, and that crap freaked me out. Yeah, try not to focus on that. You're probably fine. Krumik says, have you heard about the Wiccan Church of Canada? They have like Zoom classes for beginners. Well, I'm not a Wiccan, so I haven't really seen the Wiccan classes, but I'm sure that, Wicca is a religion, a pagan religion, but it is a religion. And I am not a Wiccan. Depending on the definition that people are using, some other people make a definition that I would be a Wiccan because I worship nature and the god and the goddess and I honor the ancestors, etc., etc. But
I certainly see no problem with doing Zoom
yeah,
classes and things. Yeah.
well, you can't it'd be difficult to do an in-person initiation, right? But who knows, maybe they found out a way of doing that. Grateful Owl says, yes, it was me. You can have a different handle for live streams.
Yeah.
Ah, cool. That was you.
Yeah.
That was a confirmation. That says, oh no, so disrespectful, honor sacred sites. Yeah, Grateful Owl, yes. Astra says, laugh out loud, Siofra. I say, do me a solid too, and if they can, I try not to ask them anything. We're mostly just interdimensional roommates. Chief Keef says, we all have a guardian too, no pack needed. However, it does take work to get in contact with the higher self.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And Teresa says, what kind of difficulties? And that would be at Beth, I think. Astra says, yeah, I think they just protect my place automatically. I'm still figuring out how to relate to them. I don't expect them to do anything for me other than grace me with their presence. They are cool. Yeah, pretty much. And they exist, they live here. It's kind of like your local beehive with the honey and the anthill, and it's like they're a part of the landscape and the environment. So figuring out how to relate is always good. Krumik says, okay. Gaga says, just about all my dreams I'm running from monsters or something. Is that a sign or something? Yeah, well, you need to take care of your inner demons, I guess.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like a sign like that, but I would say it is probably a sign that you need to, like, you get something at peace within you that's, yeah.
So Krumik says, are you a pagan then or just spiritual? No, I'm a pagan. I'm a witch. But, Wiccans are witches.
Witchcraft isn't necessarily a religion, but Wicca is.
Right. Wicca is a religion. And if you're a Wiccan, then you're a witch. But you can be a witch without being a Wiccan. It's a very specific set of practices. I'm eclectic universalist, for want of a better term, which means that I work with a lot of different deities and pantheons and practices and things like that, partly because I remember so many of them from other lifetimes. So I'm very comfortable with melding and mixing and seeing the universal truths in all the different practices and so forth. I'm very comfortable with Wicca. I'm very comfortable with Native American ceremony. And there's a lot of different experiences that I've had. And yeah, so it's a very individualistic kind of path, trying to become me. Astra says, yeah, I think the universe understands I'm not that magically sophisticated yet. Phew. Beth says, same here, Siofra. Krumik says, yes, I like to mix them all together also. Well, there are some eclectic Wiccans, so I guess you can also be eclectic as a Wiccan. But yeah, the path that we create is going to be individual no matter what we do. Wow, Neutralicious says, thank you for sharing your knowledge. Much appreciated. Blessed be from
Ontario. Thank you, everybody. It's very nice today.
Wow. Boy, awesome. Apparently we're in a groove at the moment. What do you mean the first super on a live stream? We just had, this YouTube doesn't know what it's talking about. They're mixed up.
Yes, they are.
That says, cheese manicotti is ready. I'm going to let it rest. Okay. Well, we are at the end of our show, so I guess we're going to have to go. The new video I just did is going to be out in the next couple of days. So at least I'm getting back into the swing of things, and hopefully I've given you some interesting and good information on your different spirit, your physical, astral, mental, and spirit bodies and stuff like that, which can help to figure things out and put stuff together. Master says, that sounds good. Kuma says, nice to meet you. Yes, nice to meet you too. It's always nice to get new people on the live show that are participating. Grateful Owl says, have a great day, everyone. Melinda says, bless you. Teresa says, wishing you both a really great week. Guido says, thank you both, so and blessed be. Thank you, guys. Thank you for being here and your wonderful participation. Blessed be everyone. And yes, everybody have a wonderful whatever during the week. Be safe all and
goodbye all.
Enjoy. Adios. Yes. Blessed be.
Oh, that was nice. People just decided to chip in spontaneously. That was awesome.